Marcus Carter boarded the plane expecting a quiet first-class flight, not public humiliation. The cabin smelled of fresh coffee and polished leather, but tension spiked when a flight attendant stopped at his seat. "Sir, you'll need to move," she said, not for safety, but to seat a white passenger. Whispers spread, eyes turned away. No one realized the men they were dismissing controlled a $500 million airline deal. By the end, his revenge would shock the entire nation. And you will want to witness every second. Malik Johnson had built his empire from nothing. Born in a small Georgia town, he worked 3 jobs through college, slept in his car during his first startup, and now stood as one of the most respected CEOs in the tech industry. That day, he was flying to New York for a meeting that could finalize a $500 million partnership with one of the world's largest airlines. Wearing a tailored navy suit and carrying only a sleek leather briefcase, Malik boarded the plane and took his assigned first-class seat. He was exhausted but relieved. This flight was the final step before sealing the deal of a lifetime. But moments after he settled in, a flight attendant approached with a tense smile. "Sir, I'm afraid there's been a change," she said, avoiding eye contact. Before Malik could respond, a middle-aged white man in an expensive watch and entitled smirk appeared beside her. The attendant gestured toward Malik. "This gentleman has requested your seat." Malik frowned. "I paid for this seat weeks ago. I'm not moving." Her voice tightened. "Sir, you'll have to move to economy. It's company policy." Whispers began to ripple through first class. Malik felt every pair of eyes on him, some curious, others judgmental. He could see the smug passenger already placing his carry-on in Malik's overhead bin. "Is this because of him?" Malik asked quietly, his eyes locking on the attendant. She didn't answer. Instead, she crossed her arms and repeated, "Sir, you need to move. Now." Malik could feel the heat rising in his chest, the humiliation burning deeper than any insult. He slowly stood, his mind spinning. This was more than a seat. This was about respect, or the lack of it. As he walked toward the back of the plane, the man's smug voice followed him. "Some people should know their place." Malik didn't say a word. But inside, a storm was building, one that would change the fate of the airline forever. What happened next would shock everyone on that plane, and the entire corporate world. Marcus stood frozen in the aisle, gripping his ticket as the flight attendant's eyes darted to the white man she had just invited to take his seat. The whispers started almost instantly. 2 businessmen in the row ahead exchanged smirks, while a woman in designer sunglasses muttered, "Maybe he's in the wrong section." Marcus felt his stomach twist. He had worked his way up from nothing, cleaning offices at night, studying in the glow of a single desk lamp, clawing through every barrier to become the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation. But in this moment, all those titles meant nothing. To them, he was just a black man in a place they did not think he belonged. "Sir, please move to economy," the attendant said again, her tone firm, almost impatient. "I paid for this seat," Marcus replied, his voice steady but edged with quiet fire. She sighed, glancing over her shoulder as if his words were an inconvenience. "The gentleman here is a priority passenger." Marcus' eyes locked on the man now sliding into the first-class seat. The stranger avoided eye contact, pretending to adjust his watch, but a faint, satisfied smirk betrayed him. Every muscle in Marcus' body screamed to fight back, but he forced himself to take a slow breath. He could feel the eyes of the entire cabin on him. Every second felt like an hour, the humiliation sinking deeper. His mind replayed the years he had spent negotiating multi-million-dollar deals, the contracts his signature had sealed, the respect he had earned in boardrooms around the world. And yet here, in this narrow aisle at 35,000 feet, one assumption had stripped it all away. Finally, he turned without a word and walked toward economy, each step heavy with anger and resolve. He was not done. This was not over. What happened next would not only shake the entire flight. It would send shockwaves through the airline industry. The silence in the first-class cabin was suffocating. Malik could hear the faint hum of the engines, the soft clinking of glasses, and the pounding of his own heart. He stood in the aisle, gripping his boarding pass tightly, his mind torn between walking away quietly or demanding an explanation in front of every passenger. The flight attendant, clearly uncomfortable now, tried to avoid his gaze. "Sir, we have a passenger who..." Malik cut her off. A passenger who what? Feels entitled to my seat because of the color of my skin. His voice was calm, but every word was like a blade slicing through the awkward air. Gasps rippled through the cabin. Several passengers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The elderly man in Malik's assigned spot stared down at his champagne flute, pretending not to hear. From behind, a tall man in a crisp navy suit approached, the airline's in-flight manager. Mr. Bennett, please, let's not make a scene, he said quietly. Malik took a deep breath. A scene? You already made one when you decided my comfort and dignity were optional. The in-flight manager's eyes flickered nervously. Sir, we can offer you a seat in business class. It's still very comfortable. Malik raised his boarding pass. I paid for first class. Not because I need comfort, but because I demand respect. The tension was so thick it could be cut with a knife. A woman across the aisle whispered to her husband, "Isn't that the CEO of?" But Malik did not acknowledge it. Finally, Malik stepped aside, his jaw tight. Fine, he said. But remember this moment. He walked toward business class, his mind already replaying the faces of the staff, the hesitation, the prejudice, the way they thought they could quietly brush him aside. What they did not know was that Malik had been scheduled to meet the airline's CEO the following week to finalize a $500 million corporate travel contract for his company. Now, as he settled into his downgraded seat, Malik decided that meeting would go very differently. But Malik's plan for justice would not wait for that meeting, it would begin before this flight even landed. What happened next shocked the entire cabin, and left the airline scrambling to save itself. The cabin was silent except for the faint hum of the engines. Malik stood there, calm but radiating a quiet authority that made even the captain hesitate. The same flight attendant who had smirked earlier was now frozen, her face pale as she realized who she had tried to humiliate. The captain stammered, "Sir. I had no idea who you were." Malik's voice was low but sharp. That is the problem. You should not need to know someone's title to treat them with respect. Every passenger here, no matter their skin color, status, or wealth, deserves dignity. Gasps spread through the cabin. A few passengers looked down, ashamed. Others shifted uncomfortably, realizing they had stayed silent when they should have spoken up. Malik turned to the white passenger who had demanded his seat. The man's confidence had evaporated. I didn't mean anything by it, he mumbled. You meant exactly what you said, Malik replied firmly. And the world will not change unless people like you are forced to see the consequences. With that, Malik reached into his briefcase and pulled out his phone. He dialed without hesitation. Yes, this is Malik Johnson. Cancel the $500 million fleet purchase with Horizon Airlines. Effective immediately. The words hit the cabin like a thunderclap. The flight attendant's jaw dropped. The captain's eyes widened. The man who had taken Malik's seat looked like he might sink into the floor. Malik stepped back into his first-class seat, not because they offered it, but because it was his from the start. He put on his headphones, closed his eyes, and didn't say another word for the rest of the flight. When the plane landed, news crews were already waiting. By that evening, the story was everywhere. Black CEO cancels $500 million deal after first-class discrimination. Social media erupted, with millions applauding his stand. The airline's stock plummeted overnight. The flight attendant was fired, the captain issued a public apology, and the company promised new anti-discrimination training. But Malik? He didn't care for their public relations scramble. He cared that a message had been sent, a message too loud to ignore. Sometimes, the real power is not in shouting, but in walking away and letting the world feel the silence you leave behind.